Hey friends, welcome to the Fireside. What you are about to watch and or listen to is an Inside Fireside Technique Talk. If you're not familiar with Technique Talks, they are one of our monthly events that we host in the Inside Fireside Tattoo Club. Inside Fireside is a group of tattooers who work together to hone our skills and become better artists. And the difference between a Technique Talk and a traditional podcast that you've probably seen me do before is that the Technique Talks tend to go a little deeper into working processes, materials, things like that of the artists that we're interviewing. So we're a podcast. We might just talk about any random topic. We're a little more dialed in on the Technique Talks, trying to tease out the things that make the artists that we're interviewing, tease out the things that make them unique. Second thing that is pretty different about Technique Talks is that it's not just me and the artist having a conversation. You'll notice our entire Inside Fireside Club is welcome to join and jump in on the conversation, ask questions, share ideas and things like that. So it's really a pretty unique thing. I've really enjoyed it. It's probably my favorite thing that we do in the Inside Fireside Tattoo Club. But if you would like to be a part of the club, or if you'd like to jump in on these conversations with us, you're welcome to join. We would love to have you. We do a ton of fun stuff. I won't go into it here. I will leave a link or a card or something. You'll be able to find out more about the Inside Fireside Club. There's no obligation to it. You can join 1 month, and if it's not for you, you can ditch it the next month. But anyways, I hope you enjoy this technique talk, and I'll see you at the end. Talk less about fishing this time. I took some shit last
I know. I was saying that earlier. I was like, I think last time we went a little too deep down the fishing rabbit hole, so we're gonna not do that this time.
Yeah. I got some mean comments like about not leading it in a more tattoo or drawing kind of direction. So we'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that this time.
People quit the club, I'm sure, right?
They quit the club? Yeah. If we started talking fishing, we just have a different different subscriber base, I guess. That's cool.
I guess it just depends. There's usually a big overlap between tattooers and fishing, so you could get lucky.
Yeah.
There's a good handful of us out there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm gonna pull out, unless you have something that you specific you want to kind of go through. Otherwise, I'll probably just pull up. Is it better to pull up your Instagram or a website just to kind of go through and just start like?
Instagram's more current, I would say.
Okay.
Cool. But yeah, I'm cool with just going with the flow, baby.
Okay, sweet, cool. We got 8 people on now, and we're recording it, and people will kind of come in. It's the trick with these is sometimes people are still tattooing, and so they'll roll in 30 minutes late or whatever, but they can always catch the replay. So
for sure.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I assume I'm gonna assume most of you guys know Matt and know his work, but I don't know that. So maybe I'll pull you up, and maybe if you'll just run through and just kind of talk about this a little bit, like how long you've been tattooing, what was your like drawing background, any of that stuff, just for anyone who may not know you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. What when did you start? When did you start tattooing?
Oh man, well, I started when I was 19. I'm gonna be 39 this year.
Okay, so 20 years.
So yeah, I've been going ham for a long time.
Yeah. And you didn't go to like a formal art. If you started at 19, you probably didn't go to like formal art school. You just had kind of like high school drawing.
Dude, I'm super like classic traditional tattooer kind of foundation, dude. I started a biker shop pretty much. Went in, asked for it. They initially, I kind of went and shopped my work at a few different shops. Everyone was kind of dicks at the time. It was a much more closed off industry back then. This is like 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. So everyone was pretty rude and crude and in their trade, and didn't want me bugging around. So last studio I kind of pulled into, they actually like looked at my book and saw my work, and I think back then I was like only drawing in Bic pen because I have weird textural phobias, so like pencil feels kind of gross to me. I will use it now, but back then I was just like going with them ballpoints, so everything in my book was all pen, and they really liked my stuff and told me to come back. And I did a super traditional apprenticeship. I think I apprenticed like a year and a half, I think, but I kind of I kind of progressed pretty quick. So I was like going pretty much full time at 6 months. So
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's awesome. That we're talking about Big Pen. That reminds me, I can't think of the tattooer's name. Ben something. There's a tattooer that just does these badass Big Pen drawings, and he has like he buys Big Pens by like the cases. And man, I wish I could think of his name because he's like drawing on tennis shoes and stuff too. But he'll draw like he'll do full on flash sets and nothing but Big Pen, and they're so cool, man. They look so
yeah.
good. Ben
I've
something.
definitely seen some people like that. I will say my stuff was nowhere on any of that level back then. This is like, I want
Yeah,
to say 2006, 2007. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, one of the reasons that I wanted to reach out to you is because I've seen you like working at shows and stuff. I've seen you work in real time before, and you don't do a lot of stenciling. You draw a lot directly on the skin, and it seems like you're. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you were kind of inventing it on the skin. Like you're not doing a lot. Maybe you'll have reference, but I don't think you're doing a ton of pre-drawing. You're kind of like winging
Nah,
it. So
I
what can you?
really, I really don't.
Yeah.
So basically, my theory with it, and dude, this is not for everybody, but for me, if I'm gonna draw something ahead of time, it's like it's the same as drawing it on. It's literally the same. It's just cutting out the stencil process. So if I can cut out more steps in between, like, I'm also not going as elaborate on a drawing. Like there's been so many times, and kind of what led me into this direction is I would do these super elaborate drawings that I was absolutely pumped on, spent like, 3, 4 hours on this drawing. And then the person shows up and they're like, yeah, I changed my mind, or I don't like it, or whatever it might be. And I'm like, oh man. And then I end up redrawing and re-stenciling, and I felt like what I had originally was better than what they ended up getting, because I was like, it's kind of one of those things where your first choice is always the best choice. So
Yeah.
it's what I could envision the best is what they got. So once I start freehanding stuff on and people kind of had to sit there through the draw process there, I feel like, I don't want to sound like too much of a dick, but I feel like people are less likely to want to change the drawing because they're like, that took forever. And then now they're seeing it on their skin and it already looks cool. So they're like, no, I love this. Um, and then I think
Yeah.
also something to be said about drawing to fit, like I literally draw it so it fits the body. And sometimes that lends to not photographing as well because it wraps so much. But I'm more of a like, I'm doing the piece for the person, not for social media or anything like that. So if I get a good
Yeah.
photo, that's cool. If not, it's whatever, man. It's gonna live its life and people are gonna see it. And I think that's more important.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think to a lot of people, and anyone, you guys know how I'll tend to just take over a conversation. So feel free to jump in if you have any questions, anybody along the way, or raise your hand, or if you don't want to, if you're embarrassed to talk through them in the chat. But I think a lot of people are would be pretty intimidated, to take that approach, just because of especially, something like a single kind of session piece. Do you ever find, I mean, I'm sure you hit blocks where sometimes it's just not coming to you as easy as it might,
Oh yeah.
other times. Do you have kind of processes in place where you say like, okay, whenever I hit a wall here, this is typically the approach that I take to get through it?
Well, it doesn't always come out easy. Like sometimes it just doesn't. And sometimes it's better to do less than more if that's the case, and it just is what it is sometimes, it's like I would rather do less of a tattoo and have them come back than to have to force something out, because I mean realistically you're going to be working through these problems whether it's on skin live or at home. Like the drawings are going to take you longer if it's going to take you longer no matter how you're doing it. So typically I'll only draw as much as I think I can get done in a day anyways. If it's a one shot piece, um yeah, usually I would say it's, for me at this point, it's walk before you can run, dude. Like I started out drawing only things I thought I was capable of drawing on skin. And then as it started going, my ability got better and better and I was drawing more and more elaborate things, and now it's like you know, back to the fishing thing, I show up to work sometimes in the summer on like 3.5 hours of sleep, and I have to tell my clients like, hey man, I know I look like I'm like fucked up and halfway here, but it's because I am. Don't worry, my autopilot's a gangster. And sure as shit, by the end of the day, I finished this piece where I'm like, holy crap, dude, I feel like I wasn't even here. And now my autopilot's taking over. And it's just like, you know, because I started this, like, it's small building blocks. And then once you get a collection of them, you can put together a castle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I never draw what I think I'm incapable of. If there's something I'm not great at, you know, like I got to feel it. Like one thing I don't do a lot of is I don't do a lot of human anatomy. So, and it's, you know, it's not that I'm not capable, it's just not in my, it's not what I like. So when I have to do human anatomy, it does take me a little longer, and sometimes I opt to stencil certain things or borrow certain pieces. Like, you know, I'm good with hands, which is weird because usually that's what everyone struggles with. But for me, it's like faces. I want to get the perfect face. The rest of the body I can draw. Um, so I just, you know, that's the important piece. And even sometimes, dude, I show up and I'm like, you know what? I'm drawing this thing on. Like, I feel like I got it today. And some days I do, you know, and or most days I do, I should say. And every once in a while, you know, I have a struggle session, and I would say that the worst is when I have someone flying in because the pressure is huge. And then, you know, that's where the trade-off comes in, where I'm going to be working late nights. You know, if someone's flying in and I have to get a piece done, I'm going to be working till like, you know, 2 in the morning at times. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes that's how it is. So,
Yeah. Yeah. As far as the way that you build and use reference, so we're looking at this piece right now. It's a little piece of pizza, and I'm going to assume that you didn't necessarily need pizza reference, but like, how do you are you working mostly from photographic reference? Do you borrow from a lot of other like
dude,
tattooers or artists, or what's your reference look like?
literally anything and everything, you know, it's kind of stems over to like AI models. You know, people are so offended by these things. They're like, oh, it's stealing all this stuff from artists. That's what artists already do. And like I use it all, dude. I have Midjourney. I'll build references on that. Usually I think they're kind of shit. I'm not gonna lie. The rendering is good, but their drawings suck. It's my opinion. And also I haven't used these large language AI models. I haven't like used them enough to tune them to what I want them to do, but it's because I don't care enough to go down that road. It's just a minor tool in the arsenal. I have a lot of people on Instagram that I love their stuff, and I save it, and I'll use that stuff as reference. Like, you know, I have a save folder on Instagram where I just see other artists that I'm like, dude, this is badass, or I love the way they did their leaves, or like, you know, like that's kind of why I can go down any direction. I can do realism, neo-trad. It's like you borrow, you see what other people are doing, you take the parts you like, and then you do the parts that you think you can do better, or at least attempt it. And yeah, so my like for any client who comes in, like most tattoos that I'm doing, I have a minimum of 3 references. Some I have upwards of 20 to 30 references for a single tattoo.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Yeah.
usually I'm spending about a half hour collecting reference before I even start drawing.
Hmm. Okay. And I guess, you know, by the time that because you're looking at this reference and then you're drawing it on with Sharpie, so it's not, you know, you're not taking reference literally and stenciling it on to folks. So you end up kind of translating it into your own kind of marks
Oh,
anyways.
absolutely.
So I wonder, like, how often are you, after you've kind of used the reference to get the basic layout, I wonder how often you're like still referencing it, or once you have the basic kind of Sharpie layout, you're kind of done with it.
Yeah, I mean, my rendering, the way I render things is very, I have a technique that it's like, you know, your style becomes the rules you put in for yourself. Art doesn't have rules, but inherently we all have a way we do things, and we set these rule sets because it's how your brain processes and understands how to render you know, an illustration or a tattoo or whatever it may be. So yeah, for me, it's like once it's on there, then I'll kind of I might like use the reference for some color theory kind of stuff. But most of the time I do it the same way I always do. So
Yeah.
keeps it
Yeah. So
consistent.
yeah, yeah, that's kind of what I had assumed. Like this piece that we're looking at right now, I think is really kind of indicative of a lot of your work, where you've got this, you're good at creating kind of atmospheric effects, and then you really build a ton of texture and little intricacies, but still like trying to make the whole shape work. So you've got like, you know, all of your lightest lights kind of in this front shape, but you still have tons of detail and stuff happening back in the shadow shapes, back in the distance and the atmospheric kind of stuff. And I assume, like, you know, since you're hand drawing this stuff on, you're probably not looking, you're just zoning in, not looking at a lot of reference once you start to build all these things. You just kind of decide, like, all right, the mouth and the eye and the teeth are going to be kind of what I'm pointing towards,
Yeah.
and everything else is going to sit kind of recessed.
Yeah, that's kind of one of my rules is whatever I want the focus point to be, that's where I put the highest value range. Also, this piece is a tricky one because that's all white over black.
Oh, okay.
So that was a blackout piece, and then I worked in white over the top, and then kind of it's a big experiment. But it's working. You know, the stuff at the top is all healed, and then the stuff down below, you can see kind of where I worked that day. But
Right.
yeah, it'll be kind of one of those things where I'm going to put on a layer, we're going to do the whole thing, and then I'm going to go back and just pick the high points and double tap those, make them have a higher value range.
Yeah.
Uh,
How is that? Is this your first experience trying to do that?
yeah, I mean it's the same concept of a cover up. I mean, like what he originally wanted just a blackout sleeve, and I'm like, bro, like that's kind of boring in my opinion. Like it's a little bit of a cop out. I'm like, let's do something weird. And he's another tattooer. He's a good buddy of mine. So I was like, let's get weird, baby. And he was like, all right. So actually the like top 2/3 were blackout. And then the lower 1/3 is just real like cover up.
Hmm.
So it's going to have this cool kind of coming into the light phase as it comes down because the value range is going to be able to become higher towards his hand and his lower arm.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
but it's like, you know, it's an experiment, dude. And I think sometimes that stuff's important, dude. You gotta push the boundaries so you can see where the boundary is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah, I'm curious as these the blackouts with the blast over kind of stuff, as that stuff settles in. We were in Omaha at Dave Koenig's shop a while back filming a thing, and he had I don't know if you know Jake Parsons, but Jake Parsons has basically a blackout sleeve, but it's all medium gray. So it's like
right,
it's a gray out sleeve. And then
right.
Dave came back with a lot of his filigree and layered both black and white kind of over the gray out sleeve. I don't remember if it's an opaque gray or if it's a gray wash, but either way, it seems to be working really well. And
Yeah.
most all of it was settled. And I think it's a lot of fun to see like what, you know, kind of these experiments and see how they live.
So that's also kind of what I did with this piece. The black I originally did, it wasn't like super dense, like it wasn't what I consider saturated. It's what like maybe a new artist that doesn't have the eye yet would think is saturated. I kind of skimmed it all in there real quick, dude, and just kind of we played around. Like we made a really dumb video about it. There's actually another if you go
Video.
back to my Instagram, there's another photo of his inner arm on here. That
Is
one
this
right
it?
there in the middle. Yep.
Okay. Oh,
So then
okay.
you can get an idea of like you can see some of the more healed stuff up top, and then as it comes down, you can see it kind of coming into light where the blackout stopped. And
Right.
I think there's like a tooth popping through there that you can kind of see some of the cover up coming through that I haven't hit yet. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, gotcha.
So, and then
Yeah,
that's all skin down below. So, and then I kind of left little, like you can see like the little circles that are skin, where I had a blank spot and I was like, I'm gonna just leave a circle in here and see what it becomes later. So I kind of
yeah.
snuck all these little eyeballs in there that aren't cover up, so they're even brighter than all of the white on black.
Oh, yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
a, like I said, weird experiment, man. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah, super cool. Yeah. Um, yeah, so I wonder uh with a lot of the kind of like textural stuff that you do, that's the thing that kind of stands out to me the most, no matter what the style. A lot of times I can tell it's yours just based by the oh wait, I'm back to stuff we already looked at, which is cool. Just what, you know, with the way that you like kind of approach your textures, like you know, even This actually reminds me a little bit of the piece that's on your torso that
Oh
who
yeah.
did but
Ron Earhart.
yeah, right, yeah, right. Yeah, that's such a cool piece. Um but I yeah, I wonder, did you always, like, when you were coming into tattooing, did you gravitate towards like bio kind of stuff, or did you draw more illustrative stuff,
So
or
literally everyone at my shop called me Mini Booth because they all thought I was gonna do like Paul Booth type stuff, like evil black and gray. But I come from a graffiti background originally.
oh, okay.
So like for me, color was everything, dude. And I just didn't know how to, I knew how to use it like graphically for like lettering and stuff and little kitschy stuff, but I didn't understand how to get like value with it. And then once I got into tattooing, I kind of fell in love with replication and doing like portraiture and, basically like I felt more comfortable stenciling something out that I didn't have to draw. So like I would stencil straight up rows out and then follow the picture. And through doing that, I kind of learned color theory and like how to get my values right with color. And then I really fell in love with photography for a while. So when I was younger, I shot a couple weddings. I did stuff like that, and I do have a little bit of a knack for photography, and I really like hyper focus in photography. I do it a lot in my oil paintings because I oil paint like very kind of like the Dutch Renaissance painters or Dutch masters. Like I love Rembrandt stuff because he uses a high amount of texture in the focal points, and for me, that's exactly what a camera does when you put it on portrait mode. It blurs out everything in the background, and your foreground gets this high point of focus. So
Mhm.
when I oil paint this painting specifically, I learned that as the objects become closer to your eye, the paint gets thicker.
Yeah.
So literally that orange, the texture on it, every brush stroke I did, I grabbed a huge glob of paint and did one brush stroke until it was done. No layering. It's like I picked the color, I put it on thick and left it where it went. So I
Yeah.
kind of do the same thing with my tattooing. Whatever I want to be in the foreground, I just put a little extra love into. I put a double tap on it, like
Hmm.
a lot of people are one shot artists. They like doing like a 1 day banger that's one and done. I see 1 day bangers come back and I'm like, it could be better. Like, even
Yeah.
if I put my all into it, I still, as an oil painter, I'm like, it would be better if I got a second pass. So most of the time, I have someone come back even after I do a full sleeve like this. I'll have them come back another full day or 2 full days where I layer over the top of everything and just pick my focus points, bring them out a little heavier, redo some outlines in specific areas because when you double tap black, it does become darker. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of play with old versus new too. Like I'll let certain things age when I give more attention to the newer stuff, and it
Yeah.
really seems to make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. I was going to ask you about your lining. You really, in a lot of these, like this is a great example. You really come in and build up, like, so your lines become kind of shapes of their own. Like they really, you have a lot of line kind of weight variety, and then they swing out and get super chunky, and then taper off. I think that's an important point, that a lot of times when you're coming back into a healed tattoo and you start to play with some lines and they look so clean and fresh and they pop on that heel tattoo, it's so easy to go overboard and want to do it everywhere. But it's
Right.
like it takes that discipline to be like, all right, we only need a handful. Like I'll only give myself a few options. I'll be like, I only get to do this in 3 places. Where are my top 3 places to build these lines?
That's definitely a good way to go about it. I've been doing it so long, I just have the eye for where certain things need to be. But I think for some people, don't got that chill, dude. I work with this girl, Carly, and she is so her like since she's been working with me, her rendering has just been jumping up, dude. And she's like nipping at my heels. I'm like, holy shit, this kid is good. And her drawing ability is better than mine, but it's like she's so good at drawing and it's so easy to her that sometimes like I'm like, Carly, you need to chill. You put like too much in there. Like sometimes less is more, but she's killing it and she's figuring it out, man. And I'm like so excited to see where she goes. Like she's insane, dude. So it's really you know, to your point, or to like that point, some people, I think it's better to tone back in certain things, to where it's so easy to want to just detail everything. And I think I'm an example of that. I really do detail everything, but then I go back and I find things that I'm like, all right, go even more right here, you know? So wherever your kind of balance might be with that stuff, it's a good rule to make. Like, it's one of my
Yeah.
favorite rules in art in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone, before I get into more stuff, does anyone have anything they want to ask or add, or anyone? Dan, any questions in the, I love this one. I've never seen this one back. Any questions in the chat or anything?
No, no
Yeah.
questions so far. This is basically the most insane thing I've ever heard, though. Like, the way you work is so off the cuff, but like it's clear that you've worked really hard on rendering and drawing just overall, like throughout your career. You know, you come from that graffiti background, and I can really see a lot of that with your line weights and, you know, sort of the shapes that you use, and that's really one of my favorite things about what I'm seeing. I love the way that you choose to use like negative space as well, and the way that you're like how that claw in the front on that wing, you know, you're using negative space as the outline to push that to push the contrast a lot, and it's just so unique.
Yeah,
The
it's
Yeah.
very graphic. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely.
that's really what it is like that's the kind of stuff I always look for in tattoos, is sort of that graphic illustrative sort of thing, and the big like blocky sort of extreme shapes, and you definitely do that really, really well. It's very cool.
Yeah, I think that's part of longevity, right? Like, you know, I don't get me wrong, I love a super soft no outline tattoo, and people hate on them, and I'm like, yeah, but it's so easy to like let it live its life, let it look soft, it's beautiful. As it starts falling apart, go in like 10 years later and add an outline, dude, and it'll be a brand new tattoo. It'll look sick.
Yeah.
So like, you know, I kind of, for me, I'm trying to get that all out of the way at once. Um, but I think, you know, knowing when to use that stuff is important too. You know, a lot of people like those, like the rim lighting, the like power line, whatever you want to call it. But sometimes it is really easy to overdo it. But I think with tattooing, if you want your line to be prominent, it helps in certain areas, because a lot of the times your background, your lines will sometimes blur together and become one. I think creating that rim light kind of separation value, even though I wouldn't do it on like a painting per se, for a tattoo, it definitely makes the tattoo stand out a lot crispier, a lot longer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like the kind of combination. It's like, it's not truly, a lot of these are not truly like what I would consider like you know, mixed style, but it's that really graphic, bold stuff with a lot of the soft, like textural painterly stuff, you know, in behind. It really gives it such a unique look. And I think it's one of those things, because as we're flipping through, we're seeing a lot of different subject matter and different, you know, like the Yoda was like kind of a realism thing, but almost everything I can recognize when it comes across my Instagram. I can recognize it as yours, and I think it's because of those types of ideas are so consistent all the way through.
yeah, like I said, it's just style becomes the rules you set for yourself. And I think that's you know, find what's cool to you and do it on everything. You know, so that's what I'm really trying to do out here.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
For a second, what do you I've noticed, I think the first one that's on here is I know that you and Gabe Lundis do some collaborations. Didn't you wasn't there one that I just saw that was a collab that you guys did
Yep,
recently, or am I making that?
it's that first one.
This one? Okay.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about your about collaborating, because you do it a decent amount, it seems like, and like what kind of learning, what you've learned through collaborations, and then what kind of learning curves or challenges, because I don't think a lot of people do those on the scale that you're doing them.
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of depends. You know, I've done collabs that don't work. I've done collabs that work really well. Me as an artist, I find a lot of joy in blending into old tattoos, or like, I'll use an example. I had a girl, I tattooed her at the Puerto Rico tattoo convention. This is years and years ago. And she was covered in all these like neo-traditional and traditional tattoos, and she came up and wanted like a goofy dinosaur thing, so I did it. And I literally blended the background against every tattoo around it and like put them all together seamlessly. And I remember at the end of the session, she was like, "You connected all of those tattoos." And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And she was like, "Why didn't anyone else do that?" And I was like, "I don't know." And then I kind of seen the look in her eyes like, how am I going to get someone to fill in all these gaps? And for me, it's the same as doing a collab. You don't be afraid of what someone else is doing. You be willing to work over the top of it and let them work over yours. And I think that's like the best thing, like, I've also done what I call a stay the fuck out of my way tattoo collab, where it's like you do one thing, they do the other. And maybe somewhere you find somewhere to meet in the middle. And that can be fun too if you guys both have a good strong point. Like I did another one with my buddy Derek, which was a rubber
This
ducky
one.
with the
Yeah.
rocket launcher.
Yeah.
And
Super cool.
like I did the super illustrative stuff, and he did the realism with the no outline, and then we tag teamed the background, and it was just super fun. But it was kind of like, I didn't touch his duck, he didn't touch my rocket launcher. But I think sometimes that lends to a really cool look stylistically, to where what you saw with me and Gabe, we literally, like, I don't stencil, I let Gabe stencil all that crap, but we did a digital drawing fairly quickly for that. And then, because I know Gabe likes to run off of a pretty strict reference. So we did that so Gabe could follow stuff. And then some of the things I drew on freehand. And then we kind of would work over the top of each other's stuff. Like I would knock something out on one side of the body and he would knock something out on the other side. And then next session we would switch, and I would put all of my stuff over the top of his and vice versa. And it just, I think with me and Gabe, we work together so seamlessly that it makes it super easy. Like we've done a bunch of collabs together, and it's like you almost can't tell who did what most of the time.
Yeah.
Because we just, we're on that level with each other. To where, I've also done collabs where it's like someone has a very strict way of doing things. So I stay back and I'm like, you do your thing, boo boo. And then I'll come dial some stuff in and we'll call it good. It's challenging. I think collabs, they're super fun, but you got to find people that you think you can work well with, or they have a style where you have a vision for what you could add or bring to it, or vice versa. So,
Yeah. 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 I think that's when when they're most successful is when the two come together to create something that's new and, new and unique. And it's other times, it's like it's two completely different styles that may work fine together, but when you look at it, you're like, oh, it's very clear to me who did what. Like
yeah,
it's like they kind of framed this piece with their piece, and it's like
yeah.
they basically just stack tattoos against each other,
Yep. And that's how we kind of did this one, but we thought it was funny to make the rocket launcher look stupid on the rubber ducky. Like it made it extra goofy.
Yeah.
So, we did that on purpose, and I think that's the thing is like when you're working with certain people, like I knew Derek did soft realism, so I wanted to make this dumb, like almost sticker look to it. So, I did the little thought bubble in the rocket
Yeah.
launcher to just look like weird little CG stickers. I even like, if you look at the rocket launcher too, there is no like smooth blends. It's literally done like a clip art piece, like
Right.
you just did pick and fill on everything.
It,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it looks a lot like your black and gray and your color are completely different. Like they don't look like they're done by the same artist.
well, that is because you can't really, like, I find it personally hard to do like new school or like neo trad in a black and gray style that looks good. So a lot of the time I bring more black and gray realism into the element. Um, but I'm still using the same concepts. I'm going to have heavy lines in my focal points, rim lights, But I think also black and gray, you can get away with being much more soft in a piece and doing more meticulous small details that I think hold up longer and better than color, because colors kind of have a tendency to blend together over time. So yeah, you're correct on that. I think they are completely different. But I do still do black and gray in a weird tism kind of thing. Instead of seeing black and gray as like, washes and blending things out, I set up my black and gray caps specifically to be a number system. So when I'm doing black and gray, I'm arranging them in a value system from 1 to 10. So when I'm doing an area, instead of trying to blend it out on all smooth, I don't really care about that. I literally pack it like it's a color, even if it's like a 1 drop, to where if you look at this piece, there's almost no skin coming through. It's like a very light value right to the white. So I do still think of black and gray as color. I just saturate it. So a lot of people think it has like I'm using actual opaque grays, but I'm not. It's literally drops of black in water.
Yeah.
So,
And you are pre-mixing. You don't use any pre-mixed grays or any of the whitewash, any of that kind of stuff. You mix your own.
Yeah, I just
the drop
dynamic
system.
black. Yeah, dynamic black. I do 75%, 50%, 25%, 4 drop, 2 drop, 1 drop. So every cap is about half of the
Gotcha.
last cap.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
so when
That's
you're
kinda
doing
neat.
the color, sorry,
Oh, you're good.
I was just wondering, so
Go ahead.
when you do the color, are you also doing that many steps in the color?
No. When I'm doing color, I'm doing a lot of mixing in the tube. Just because, my black and gray, I can't see the value in the cap. I have to actually physically know what that value is. Because a lot of the times also black and gray lies to you. It looks a lot darker when it's first done. So for me, I don't even care what the piece looks like. I know what I'm putting in there as I'm going. To where color, you can see what the color is going to be when you saturate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sometimes like yellows and stuff lie to you a little bit, and whites you got to be really careful with. Like if you use white with a mag, it'll do weird stuff and kind of hyperpigmentate sometimes. So like usually if I'm doing white with a mag, I do like 1 pass, and if it doesn't look saturated, I don't care. I leave it alone.
Yeah. Gotcha. What are you? Because you use a good bit of white. I assume you used it mostly with liners or around shaders.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will opt to just leave skin tone for white. With as much as you use it, what's your kind of experience overall? I guess it works because you still do it all the time.
Yeah, so I even have some clients here in Mass that are fairly dark skin, and I always do like a little test strip. Like I'll just put a glint in an eye on their piece and just see how that heals. Because sometimes, darker skin will hyperpigmentate easier. So that, your whites will actually become darker than their skin. And in that case, it's not good to use. But in my experience, even my darker clients, take white really well. And I think it's attributed to, one, I use a foot switch. I know it's kind of old fashioned. A lot of people hate on them, but it allows me to turn my machine off and go all the way to the bottom of an ink cap. So in my liner tube, I can load that thing to the brim. And when I do white, I run it pretty deep and pretty slow. So I'm not pulling fast lines with white. I'm running it super slow and burying. It's probably terrible. People probably want to die when I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But usually by then my tattoos are so dense that I can get them back teened and get them chilled out a little bit. So when I'm doing the white, it's usually not quite as bad as most people say my color is like the worst when I'm actually using a shader. And Leanne, Gabe's wife, says it's because I stay in the skin longer than a lot of people. And I also attribute that to using a foot switch. When I do a mag, I dip all the way to the bottom, turn my machine off, and there I have a bigger pigment load, so I can keep going longer rather than dipping back and forth more often. Also, I feel like it makes less mess. If you have a ton of pigment in a mag and you go from or even in a liner, when you go from your tabletop to your tattoo, it's probably going to spray stuff or you're going to make a lot more of a mess. And I'm a bit of a germaphobe, so foot switch is king to me, and it doesn't bother me at all. So
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that's an advantage too to a lot of that.
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I haven't used a foot switch in a long time, but I certainly miss like being able to, because to your point, I'm not necessarily reaching over and turning my battery machine off to dip down to the bottom. I'm just like
Right.
constantly, filling up new ink caps so that I don't have to worry about how low that it gets, but yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, if they had deeper ink caps, I'm sure you could get them, but it's like I feel like I want to like almost like a glass of water style ink cap. I want a tall, deep boy rather than like, most of them are kind of chody, dude, and built like a belly button. It's like, you just get this little tiny shallow thing. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
foot switch is my thing, and another thing is like oh, where was I going with this? I don't know. I lost it, but yeah, I get a
Yeah.
lot of pigment in there when I'm working, man.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What is your kind of machine and needle setup? What do you use a lot of different configurations, or are you fairly basic?
I'm pretty standard. I'm usually using like a 9 round liner and 11 or 13 mag on most
Okay,
everything.
gotcha.
Curve mag, standard needle. I really don't like some of the bug pins or sharper like configurations. I feel like they pick up too much skin and they kind of clog up easier.
Yeah,
And then, I don't, if I want a thinner line, I'll use less needles. You know what I mean? Like that's my theory. So I like a really standard, like, I don't know if you remember cam, but I used to use cam needles back in the day and they were kind of shitty, but they were dope because they were like $10 for like a freaking 1,000 needles. And what was cool is in a spread, you would look at them and they were all completely different. So if I had a 5 liner or 7 liner, I could be like, all right, I'm doing some kind of fine line today. I'll pick the thinnest one out of my group of 5. Or I'm like, I
yeah,
need something a little bolder. I pick a thicker one out, which, with cartridges, we don't get that luxury. The quality has come up since then. But, I'm using like Helios, and I think they're a very nice standard needle.
yeah, yeah. When you're building these really big chunky lines, do you tend to just stick with your 9 liner and just sculpt, like scumble the line
Yep.
and build it up, or you don't do a lot
Yeah.
of just single pass with those, I guess?
Yeah, no, I'll use that 9 round and I'll kind of run 2 lines parallel to each other. I call it drill and fill, and then I'll fill it with the 9 round like it's like I'll use it like a shader to get some of the big like if I want something real chunky. But usually on most pieces, like I'll kind of stick from 2 pass to 1 pass, sort of like every once in a while 3 passes. But some pieces I want a thick boy. And
Yeah.
also, like that Raptor torso piece you guys were checking out in black and gray. A lot of the big lines on there I magged. I use like an 11 mag to pull that whole lightning bolt line and some of the bigger stuff on that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I've gotten to where I'll do that a little bit more. Years ago, I was introduced to the idea of lining with a mag from I got it from Jeff Insminger. Jeff got it from Guy Aitchison, but
yeah,
then Guy said that he got it from like some dudes in Indiana in the 80s that just couldn't run a liner. And so they were just started
exactly.
lining with 5 mags. And so
Yep.
I've seen Jeff do these crazy big chunky back pieces with big like sculpted heavy lines like yours. And he's like, yeah, the whole thing's 5 mag. I didn't even have a liner out. Yeah.
I feel like too with me, like if I'm doing like belly rockers, like big script across the stomach, mag over everything, dude. Liners just bounce off the skin too much, and it's too hard to get a clean mag or a clean line to wear a shader. It's like easier to just kind of move along with it, and if you need to, you can clean up the edges. But usually, I'm pretty. A lot of the times too, I'll use a flat square mag for stuff like that because I like having those corners to keep it crispy.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do think flat mags put in ink a little denser because you have those corners. I'm just too lazy, man. It's too lazy to keep off the edges when you're trying to get something smooth.
Yeah, yeah. When you're building a lot of these textures, like for example, on this in the honeycomb right here, do you tend to do you lay down kind of the base layer with a mag and then come in and sculpt the dark and lights over, or do you tend to like are you
So
rendering as you go?
with that, you know, I kept it soft in there. So I basically took what looks like probably caramel. I mixed caramel with some black, and then I lined out all of those octagons and even like chose my tones while I was lining it, like keeping it soft on purpose. And then I'll kind of brush a light medium tone over the top, maybe some darker tones in some areas. And then I come back with my whites and then bring back the edges.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I've building textures. I'm doing yesterday I was working on this kind of, it's like a Bob Ross tribute sleeve, as they have it like stacked. It's like stacked Bob Ross paintings, and you know he got a lot of textural stuff in like his evergreens with brushes with the brushes that he was using, and trying to mimic those in some way or stylize them where they work for tattooing. I go back and forth whether I should, you know, go ahead and just lay in the base layer of the mid-tone green, and then and once it heals, come back and sculpt and build all those textures on top of it, like I would maybe a painting, or whether just to try to, you know, approach it in a single pass. So I'm always curious, you know,
you know,
how
I
people are
think
handling.
there's no right or, you know, there's a lot of different ways to get the same result. I think whatever you're comfortable with, whatever your brain tells you like would work best is usually going to be your best option because it's what you can envision and what you're going to be more comfortable with.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. I think there's faster ways to do it, and I think there's efficient ways to do it. Um, so it's really kind of whatever route people are comfortable with, you know, like I don't know, dude, like I'm
Yeah.
doing a white over black sleeve that's like crazy in depth. I don't You just try it and see if it works. And if it don't, tell your client like, hey, come back again. We'll make it better next time. I promise, you know.
Yeah.
I think
Right.
that's just part of having good rapport with your clients and being transparent. You know, with that guy's arm, I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing on this, dude. Like, I've never done this, but what's
Yeah.
in my brain is pretty freaking cool.
Right.
And if it doesn't come out good, well, it was like 10 cover ups under there. So, you know, it's probably better than what you had initially. And it's, in my opinion, better than just a solid black arm.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
you know, even if it doesn't become like a star piece, which I think it's gonna actually, it's like working very well. But sometimes you just got to experiment, man. I mean, like when within reason, you know, like I'm not gonna like do something like I wouldn't do that white over black project if I wasn't already competent in my ability to do regular ass cover ups.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. What
yeah,
as far as like just looking at this piece and the last kind of version of it, I a lot of your approach to color, you know, you're kind of I don't know if you're using a, you know, a fairly limited palette, or if you set out 30 colors, or how much you plan, but there's a lot of what feels experimental, you know, like a lot of these tones, like some of them are, I see tones that you use a lot, you know, over and over, like a lot of this stuff that's in the bicep, you know,
yeah.
but then you've got this kind of like warmer, you know, kind of burnt orange thing kind of leading back into this more kind of purpley gray, you know, mauve. Like, are you winging all of that, or what's your approach to color? Are you
Super,
just starting with one color and
super
then saying this? Go ahead.
Yeah, super minimal palette, you know, like warm colors pop. So a lot of my stuff, like my foreground's gonna be warm, my backgrounds are gonna be cool. I always use that teal because it's the fucking best color in the skin. It's bright on every single person. It's great. Um, you know, I'm mixing a lot in that tube. So that mantis is definitely, I probably took a black and red, made a burgundy, and then mixed warm into it to warm it up as it went forward, and then left the warmth out of it and just did the black red, and then mixed into white to give me a more purpley version as it went back to make it kind of slowly start falling into the atmosphere. But realistically, color is not important. It's just value range.
Right.
Like I could have done that mantis 100 colors, as long as they were in the proper value range for where it's at in the piece, and it would have been fine. So when I'm mixing in the tube, that's what I was going to say earlier. Foot switch helps me get super minute color shifts in the tube
Mm.
because I can dip deep into one without my needle running, and then I can barely touch my needles to another color, and it's going to give me these like super subtle color shifts. Or like I'll just tap just the tip like until I get the right color because it'll keep picking the ink up little by little, and I'm like, perfect, there it is. But yeah, my
Yeah.
palettes, I pretty much use everything a mid-tone, and then I mix them in black and white into everything. So I basically, my palette looks like a box of crayons. There's nothing fancy. There's no earth tones. The only earth tone I got's like I use Dolce de Leche from Solid Inks,
Solid, yeah.
because
Yeah.
that color's so far holding up better than like what I was using before, which was Eternal Caramel, which disappears. And, you know,
Yeah.
just trying to find better colors through trial and error.
Yeah, yeah. And I think an important point that you're talking about your colors looking like a box of crayons. That I think that it's important to just, you know, start with the high intensity colors, and then as you find that you're mixing colors over and over, if you found yourself mixing what is a dulce de leche, you're like, okay, I mixed this enough now that I should just go buy it. But at least now you know like what it's made up of and how to
Right.
use it, rather than just like grabbing a set of 250 colors and you're looking like overwhelmed with all these
Right.
different inks, you have no idea where they belong.
Absolutely. And side note to anyone watching, dude, like the biggest secret to earth tones, like literally you don't have to buy any of these weird Easter egg colors. They're all just black and white mixed into whatever primary or tertiary secondary color. So anytime I want to do something like, say, you know, I want like a teal that's an earth tone, for instance, I mix black into my teal, do my darks, and then I leave the black in the teal and mix in white, and it will give me a gray teal. It works with every color. It works with purple. Like, if you know, I can make caramel by just mixing black into orange and then into white. But I try not to. I feel like some of the, you know, like caramel or whatever, I feel like it's better out of the bottle than trying to get a consistent mixture. But most other colors, you know, like this gator at the bottom, that's literally Motor City Cuda purple mixed into black and white. And
Yeah.
it gives you a full earth tone fucking alligator.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. Yeah.
easy stuff once you get it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned all that. I think those are important points. And then, yeah, like buying a color like that, you know, mixing something like burnt oranges, you know, for example, as you get into, or, you know, brown tones, as you get into larger pieces, like I'm doing a big kind of like, um, electrified mechanical fox, but a lot of it is a fox, you know. And so you know, what I found is I was kind of playing with how red I wanted it, or you know, how I wanted it to mute as it fell back, and how intense I wanted it to come as it moves forward. And so you're kind of mixing these burnt oranges, but then you realize like you get through a whole like hind quarter of a fox that takes up this much space one week, and they come back a month or so later, and you're like, man, I wish I hadn't mixed that color. I wish I had like used a burnt orange because now
Right.
I have to find
Right.
it again. So yeah,
Well,
like
that's what I think that's why a lot of my pieces you'll see they're all kind of the same hues, is because when I'm mixing from my primary colors, it gives me the same thing every time. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
So much
you know,
yeah, that's a
black.
good point. Oh yeah.
so this is me starting that blackout piece.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
tried to do a goofy video trying to get into figuring out what an algorithm wants.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And yeah, so he brought this giant mag, which I ended up not using it after the video because they just don't saturate. It's beta
Man,
nail theory.
I agree. Yeah.
Like if I wanted something powdery, smooth, and grays, it would work great. But for saturating black, it was literally just for the video.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Good video.
yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I'm sure some people can get it to run well, but I had my machine humming, dude, and it just I'm so much faster with just a 13 or a 15 mag with this stuff. So
I completely agree. Yeah, I've never tried to use anything quite this size, but even getting into like, you know, like I have a box of even 23s. Well, how big do they get before they're only available in bug pens? They get to a size where you just can't get a standard taper anymore. If you can, I don't know who has them. They're just like, once they get to a certain size, they're all bug pens. And I just have the hardest time getting saturation out of them. I would much rather work with a 13 or a 15.
right.
And yeah, you can move through it so much faster. But well, we got about 5 minutes or so left. Do you got anyone have any questions? Any Matt, anything else you want to kind of hit on? Anything you think we might have missed or?
I don't know. I think that was pretty fun in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know. We could keep
yeah,
going. I could stay here all night and chat, dude. I'm a chatty Cathy, so
yeah.
uh
Well, cool. Anyone have anything they want to add? Any questions? Anything that
side note,
missed?
I am social on social media. I always accept DMs. If anyone ever has any questions offhand, dude, I love feeling like I know something. So, you know, you ask me questions, I'm like, oh, I got an answer for you. It makes me feel cool. So I love chatting to people and talking shop, dude. I love that stuff. So anyone on here who's watching, always feel free to shoot me a DM, dude. I'm pretty weird, but I'm a good time. Don't be shy. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
cool. I
Just
love this piece. The mech candy. It's
yeah, so that's on Carly. That's the girl I was talking about that I work
uh
with. She's just like she's phenomenal, man. She puts out like a new painting every week. She's crazy. Like she is
uh
a real artist. It's where I
uh
just finished my first painting in 3 years. Uh,
right.
it's
Yeah.
it's been a slow process, especially since I've got my little one now. It's like trying to find when I can use oils with them being toxic when she's not going to come up and just eat some lead white out of my palette, you know.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, definitely a big challenge. I've actually been considering. We're sitting in my studio now, and it's all my oil setup is here. I think just sitting here and working, drawing, podcasting, all this stuff, I get as I sit here all day, I start to just feel like in my throat and chest that I'm like, man, I feel like I'd never noticed it before, but now I feel like I can like taste it, or it just
Yeah.
stays with me. I go to bed and I'm like, it's in my nose hair or something. I just can't get rid of it. And I use all
Yeah.
odorless, non-toxic stuff, but the paints are still all sitting out. So.
Well,
Yeah.
that's why I wish they kind of put an odor in it so you could know when it was around, but I can smell this stuff. I mean, I don't even have a great sense of smell, but when my terp's sitting open or my odorless mineral spirits is sitting open, I can smell it. So
Oh,
yeah, I tried like when I paint, dude, I have like a little uh offshoot of my kitchen and I'll paint in there. It's got a skylight above, so it's real nice in the daytime. And I basically only get like an hour to 2 hours when my kid takes a nap that I'm like, I'll kind of get everything ready and not open anything. And then once she goes down for a nap, I'm like, let's go. And it's kind of cool because it's like I have a limited amount of time. So I'm trying to be more efficient and paint faster. And yeah, I finally, dude, in this painting I did in the last 3 years, it's so small, it's like ridiculous. Like it shouldn't have taken me 3 years, but it's beautiful, It's like I'm proud of it. I'm proud that I did it. Like it looks really good, but it should
yeah.
not have. Like I can't justify it for 3 years, but it's what I got now, So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny. Like we're the efficiency is kind of forced into us or built in when it comes to tattooing because you're dealing with a person and dollars and pain and all that kind of stuff in limited time. But I've got the same problem. I have dozens of half finished paintings that I just get to a point where I'm just not purposeful about them, and then I'll have another idea and I'll just start something new, and then there's other stuff just sitting half finished. And if you get in the habit of that, it just it never stops, like it gets to a point where you just can't finish anything. You don't even know how to finish it. There's always
yeah,
something else you can do.
so I'll definitely every once in a while I have a painting sitting around, and usually it'll have like a 2 or 3 year lifespan before I either am like, nah, I'm gonna work on this one. I have nothing going on. Let's pick it back up, or I'm like, nah, that thing's for the birds. I'm throwing it in the trash. So, and
Yeah.
I've had paintings where people like I had a painting that someone offered me like 2 grand for, and I was like, it's not done yet, and I ended up punching a hole through it and throwing it away because everyone wanted it, but I was like, I can't have it out there unfinished. I would rather burn it. And I
And so
know it sounds
you couldn't
weird,
bring
but I'm
yourself to
like,
finish it.
nah, it wasn't what I wanted it to be, so I'll let it go, man. Sometimes
Yeah.
that's important, dude. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
sometimes you push through, and then every once in a while, I have a piece that sits there for a couple of years, and I see it, and it's like I don't have anything to work on right now. Let's pull this up and see if I can make it go somewhere. And then you work on it for a couple hours, and you fall back in love with it, and you're like, "Oh, this is going to be a banger," and I finish it.
Mhm.
Um, but usually, I'm kind of a one piece at a time kind of person. They do happen where I'll kind of fall out of love with a piece, or I just didn't push it far enough, quick enough, and I'm just like, oh, I'm never gonna finish that. And I accept that. I'm like, let it go. Let's start something new.
Yeah.
But usually I'm pretty diligent where I'm like, once something's been sitting for a minute, I'm like, I gotta work on it. I gotta work on it, and I'll kind of get back into the flow. And once I put a night on it, then it's like I'm addicted again. It's like, you know, almost like a drug to me. I'm like, let's get back into this, which, you know, drugs don't have that same effect, but to me, that's what a drug would be, I would assume.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah, with you completely. It's funny how you'll find yourself obsessing over something for a while, then you take a small break from it, and then it's just out of your mind. You don't deal with it at all. And then you have to get back in. You're like, oh yeah, I used to do this every day. Like last month, I was doing this every day, and this is why. It's fun.
Yeah. I'm excited for when my daughter gets a little older and we can paint together. But she's not really like fully verbal yet. Like she speaks, but just I can't like reason with her yet. Once I can reason with her and like be like, hey, dude, we can paint together, and I'll get her some non-toxic stuff, and I'll keep using the poison because I love it.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, thanks for taking the time. I love this kind of collection of what's been rolling over as we're talking right here. This is all in one person, or is this a collab, different pieces?
no, that's all me. So dude, this guy is going to be like one of my first like bodysuits. I did that piece on his ribs. He had the giant graffiti letters, but they're all blown out and shitty. So I put the clock tower in it. And then he came back, I did his back, then I did his sleeve, then I did his leg, and it's just like kind of, you know, starting each body part becomes its own kind of piece. But yeah, that's all just me. This is like one of my most loyal clients. He's the best. Like, we'll finish a project and he just books another session. I'm like, what are we doing? He's like, I don't know, dude. And I'm like, cool. And then he shows up and like, you know, we did that ramen cat. We started that and he showed up and I was like, what are we doing today? He's like, I have no idea, bro. And like by the end of the day, he had a cat eating ramen on his leg with a Karate Kid bandana.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, that's a great client. Yeah, you're lucky with that one.
He's a good dude. Good individual too, man. I really pride myself on like a lot of my clients are some of the best people I've ever met. And I'm like, I'm very blessed. Very lucky to work with such amazing people.
Yeah, definitely. Well, cool, man. Thanks again for Kurt's got his hand up. What's up, man?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time, sir. Very much appreciated.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Thanks for tuning in, man. You know, like I've kind of been doing this so long that I don't realize how much people like really look forward to seeing my stuff or talking to me. I just feel like there's so many amazing artists out there that sometimes it's like, you know, throwing stuff into the void. But I really appreciate it, dude. It always makes me feel good when people come up and like love my work, dude. I try to never be a hot dog and be like, you know, I don't ever want to be too cool for people. That's why I always welcome DMs, dude. I'm social on social media is what I like to say, dude. And thanks for tuning in, dude. Thanks for, you know, being here. Makes me feel cool, dude. I feel cool again. Maybe I'll keep tattooing.
Yeah, you should. You should stick with it a little longer. Cool,
Jake,
man. Well,
always a pleasure, bro. Thanks for having me on, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we'll cross paths in real life again soon.
Absolutely, man. Sounds good.
Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. You have a good night. If you came in late, the replay will probably be up, Dan, tomorrow, the next day, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll post it. And yeah, cool, man. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Till next time.
All right, thanks for spending a little time with us. I hope you got something out of that. Like I said, if you would like to be a part of these discussions going forward, we do these at least once every single month, along with Mindset Mondays and drawing challenges and lots of other events in the club. I'd love to have you try it out and see if it might be something that helps you grow your tattoo skill set. What else? I think that's it. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.